David Edward and Michael Gajeski discuss Michael's new book, The Shotgun House.
Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well.
I thank you
How
for
are you?
joining. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on the podcast here. I'm in Florida. Where are you?
Actually in Central Arkansas.
Central Arkansas.
Right between the Ouachita and Ozark National Forests.
And that is important to your book, I believe.
It is. So the book is actually set in the Ouachita National Forest or the surrounding areas. And the forest itself plays a major role in the story. Not to get into spoilers too much, but it is a supernatural horror, suspense, thriller sort of book. And the dark, never-ending woods definitely plays a part in that. So
interesting. And it's called The Shotgun House.
Yes, that's correct.
And we'll put a link to it down below the podcast here. So, and if I understand it right, this is your, as they say in the business, your debut novel.
Yep. As my 14-year-old would say, I'm a total noob.
Well, not anymore. Now you have a novel out. Now you're not a noob. You were. Now you're not.
My first real story that I ever finished. I made several attempts at writing a novel before this. This is the first one that really took hold. And really, it was just I wanted to have a book written, not published, but written before my 30th birthday. So that was what this was.
Life goal.
5 years to publish it afterwards, but
well,
I'm not worried about that. I hit that 30-year deadline I set for myself. So.
That's great. So, so since this is your first novel, let's talk a little bit about, because what I'm really curious to talk about is what you thought it was going to be like to write and finish a novel, and then what it was actually like to write and finish a novel. I know on my first book, I assumed it would be kind of easy. And it was anything but, because there's writing is one thing, but finishing is another. So what was the experience like for you to write this thing?
So what actually got me to the point where I wanted to write a book was one of those, if this person can do it, anyone else can. And not to disparage a very popular and successful writer, but it was after reading a certain vampire story that was very popular around 2008.
Okay.
Which it was all right. I just read it and I was like, well, I could do this. So I gave it several attempts before that. And I realized, look, this is not as easy as I thought it would be. I started going over any sort of advice I could get from famous authors that I liked. I went through everything I could find from Dean Koontz and Stephen King and writers like that, any sort of advice I could find. And so once I hit that point where I was like, this is definitely harder, I think I had a more realistic mindset going into it. So by the time I really sat down to start writing the first solid draft of this story, I think I had a pretty good idea of the amount of work it was going to be and the amount of dedication it was going to take.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit, because this is what drove me to actually create this podcast. I did the exact same thing you did when I first started writing, and what I found was that a lot of the advice, and I watched probably the same videos you did and stuff, and I read the same websites, and it wasn't in the end how I ended up writing. I have a completely different process, and so what I think I want to do is I want to talk to people like you. To get out. Well, did you end up kind of following that stock advice that you found, or did you do it another way, or how did you end up writing it? Yeah,
I kind of wound up on a hybrid. Some people talk about outlining. I tried outlining. I cannot function as an outliner. That just was not for me. I tried the strict pantser approach where you sit down and you kind of clear your head and you just go, and that didn't really work. What I really found was helpful was to have just a general idea of where I wanted it to go. Nothing rigid, because when I was trying to use an outline, I felt almost cornered, and the stuff that came out, I really, I don't know any other way to describe it. It was kind of lifeless and dull. And
I use the word flat, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. It was nothing that I would allow another person to read, honestly. So when I kind of landed on the idea of, some planning is okay, but, don't box yourself in, I realized, hey, anytime I start to hit a point where I feel like I would be bored in this story, I'm just going to make something happen. And, always within the correct context and within the scope of where you're trying to go. And sometimes it does get messy. I'm not going to lie, taking that approach, but really, I don't regret it at all. It worked out well.
How long did it take you to write the book? Kind of from the first word to being done with the last draft?
It took 5.5 years.
That's so long. Okay, that's a commitment. That's good.
2016, January 2016 to about September 2021. So a little more than 5.5 years.
Now, how long for the first draft?
The first draft was actually done in less than 2 months.
That's interesting. Okay.
I got in a sort of headspace that I just could not stop. I had 1 week where I put out 26,000 words.
Wow.
I was on a roll, and a lot of that actually made it through to the final draft.
Okay.
The beginning didn't, the ending didn't. I rewrote both of those. I tightened up everything else, and a good probably, I'd say 40% of the book is very, very close to what it was in the original draft.
That's interesting. You're describing my first book, although you're getting much better reviews than my first book got. So that's good. But all right, so when you sat down to write, did you kind of wrote 26,000 words? Did you keep track of the words? Did you block out 2 hours? Did you say I got to write 1,500 words? How did you push your way through the book?
I really just kind of put on some noise canceling headphones and played rain sounds, and just went until I felt like stopping. And sometimes that was only 45 minutes or an hour. Other times it was 3 or 4 hours. I got into a habit where I would write in the morning before work, and I would write when I got home from work, and then I would make dinner for the family, and then I would get back to work. And so I tried not to let, household duties push too far to the side. I'm a father. I've got 4 kids. Just the drive to get it out there or get it done. I honestly, I didn't know whether or not I was going to even attempt to publish it when I did the first draft.
Right. Okay.
It was just a real drive to get it done and hit that 30-year birthday goal. But also,
you had a self-imposed deadline.
Really enjoying the characters and seeing where they went. That was another thing. Something that really surprised me. I kind of got into a habit where, as I'd be sitting at work with a few idle moments, it would just be consumed with daydreams of, how these characters are functioning in their lives, what they're doing, where they're going, what their histories are, what is really happening with them as this is all going on. And I think that was another really important piece of getting this pushed to the end.
That's fascinating. We have very, very similar experiences. I find the same thing, and I'll sit in a room, like you said, by myself. It's absolutely quiet for 2 hours, and I'll come out like all kinds of stuff has just happened, and all of this, nothing's happened, right? In your head, you feel like you've been on a journey and you've had emotions and experiences. And I heard people talk about that before I had written a book, and I thought it was baloney. But now it's such a unique experience. You explained it better than I could. Did you ever get stuck over that 5.5 years?
So I finished the first draft, and then I thought, okay, well, this turned out better than I thought, and my intention was to go back after 6 months and try to revise it. And I revised half of it, and then got busy, and it kind of stayed put away for another 6 months. Then I picked it back up again and finished the first round of revisions, and I don't think I did a third draft for maybe 2 years. And then I started on the final draft early 2021, just as let's try to polish this up. Maybe I'll let some of my friends read it, and we'll see what they say. I wound up in the hospital with my fourth child. He was put in the NICU for about a month in another town 3 hours away. My wife and I put the older kids with relatives, and we basically moved 3 hours away for a month.
Wow.
And stayed in this little hospital room while we waited for the baby to get well enough to come home. And that was a lot of waiting, a lot of sitting there, a lot of idle time. We did our best to kind of occupy ourselves and stay entertained. But when it comes down to it, nothing takes your mind off a situation like that better than, sort of escapist mentality you get into when you're writing a book. You're not sitting in that room. You are living the lives of your characters. So it was a real comfort for me to sit there, go through the book one last time. And at that point, I had given it to some close, trusted friends. And I received some incredibly positive feedback from them.
Very much, yeah.
Reached out to another friend of mine, Josh Gayu. He's the author of the Commune series. Excellent stories, by the way. Apocalyptic sort of thing. But I reached out to him, and he gave me some encouragement. We chatted for quite a while, and he basically told me, when he said when he started writing, what he really wanted was to have a hobby that did not financially drain his family for once. So he said his goal with his first book was to just put it out there and see what happened. And he did get very lucky. He has since published several books. I think he's got six books in the Commune series, another 3-book series called World Ship, stuff that sells and performs well. He basically said that in all likelihood, I wasn't gonna have any sort of success. Good writing, bad writing, it's so hard to break into the business. It's just almost pure luck or pure luck in who sees it, or just in who
it's just luck.
It was discouraging.
It's just
I'm
luck.
not gonna lie.
No, it's just luck. Yeah.
But at that point, when you realize there's almost no chance, why not just put it out there? So I designed a cover and learned how to use the Kindle publishing stuff and just put it out on Amazon. And it's not selling like hotcakes, but people are buying it.
It looks like it's doing okay.
They say good things. Word is spreading. It may blow up someday, but
it's a long game too. I'll tell you, it's a long game. It's only been out for not even a year, about 9 months or something.
Not quite a year.
Yeah, just under September. I'm looking at it. September. I want to go back. I want to ask you a question. With that long a writing process, 5.5 years, when you would put the book away for 6 months and come back to it, how did you reacquaint yourself? Did you just have to read it again every time, or how did you get your head back into the space of the book and the characters and the story and all that?
So really, I don't think I ever quite left that headspace to begin with. one thing you got to kind of understand about how this thing shaped up is that this wasn't even my first attempt to write this particular novel. I had written, 10 pages here and trashed them, 20 pages there and trashed them, things I just wasn't happy with. So the story kind of, in essence, if not in real concrete details, had been shaping up in my head probably for 5 years before I actually put pen to paper for good. So at that point, I was really to a point where I think I knew the characters well enough. And when I really did have concrete details to the story, I think everything really stuck in my head. I didn't have a huge problem trying to get back into it.
Well,
maybe a unique situation.
I think it is. Let me turn on the other way. How did you know you were done?
If you read the book, there is a very definite end. No spoilers. It definitely ended for the two people that are the main players in that story. Now, the story for some of the ancillary characters that will carry on into the sequel, that's another story. But it was obvious to me where it had to end.
Okay. And I know a lot of you are the people that have read it are clamoring for a second book. I mean, are you going to try and write another book in this series? Is it something that can become a series, or what does that look like?
I think so. And it's kind of turning into almost a sort of idea where I'm playing around with almost creating sort of like an alternate history for the area. And diving into this sort of mythology that surrounds it, not in the sense of, I see a lot of like urban fantasy that's like magic and all of these things just happening right under your nose, more tied into like Native American actual histories and real life locations, and really draw from the history of the area. Because that's one thing about the Ozarks and the Ouachita National Forest, the area surrounding it. There's such a rich history, things that most people would never happen upon.
I was
full of interesting little stories and family feuds.
It's a rich history. Yeah, and it's really part of Americana and all that to say, but it's not over. There's not a ton of stories and investigative into it. The people out, like I'm in Florida. We mentioned. I don't know that much about. I'm aware of it, but I don't know all the details and all the stories and stuff. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. Well, let me ask you this. So when the book came out, is there anything that surprised you about actually having the book out?
I was really surprised by one particular thing. People keep telling me how realistic the dialogue is. I would have never thought that would have been one of my strong suits. So kind of learning a little bit about maybe a talent that I have that I really did not see there, didn't see coming. That was the biggest surprise. Maybe the biggest thing aside from that is just the amount of work that it takes to push your book out there to people. Kind of rely on social media and word of mouth. I don't have a traditional publisher, so it's really, best case scenario, the right person reads it and I wind up like Andy Weir, or sure there are others. Andy Weir is the only one that's coming to mind at the moment as far as like a breakout self-published.
Yeah, he got very lucky. God bless him. Good for him. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so what advice might you have? I mean, you certainly played the long game in getting the first novel out. What advice might you have for someone who's maybe where you were? 5 or 10 years ago, however you want to look at it. What would you tell them if you could talk to them? Which hopefully they're watching this.
If you have any aptitude for writing, you can become a solid writer. You know, writing, a lot of people see writing as an art, and that this is not to say that it's not an art form, because it definitely is, just like anything else. But it's very much a craft also. It's about persistence and really putting the work in, more so than having any sort of innate talent, because a person that has the talent without the work ethic is never going to get there. So if you want to write as much as you can, read as much as you can, and apply a technical eye to the things you read also.
Yeah. Yes. And I would add what you made me think of when you said there's also, if you're finding you're not enjoying the process of writing, don't bother, because you live in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes consuming.
It's like having a kid. I mean, it really turns into your baby. You're going to be exhausted. It's going to kick you in the stones. It's going to wake you up at night. I mean,
no, it is. It's a lot of work. It's great. It's all great and it's all worth it, but it's a lot of work. So if you're not enjoying it, might not be the thing. All right, Michael, look, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. We'll follow up when your next book comes out. Let me know. Maybe we'll talk about that. Okay, sir. I'll see you. Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button.